You have read the books, you have highlighted the pages, you have taken the notes, you have listened to the audiobooks on your morning walk, you have watched the summaries on YouTube, you have bookmarked the quotes, you have shared them on social media, and your life is exactly the same as it was 3 years ago. Same job, same bank account, same problems, same excuses, just more books on the shelf. Let me say something that is going to make a lot of people angry. Reading books is not self-improvement. Reading books is the feeling of self-improvement. And there is a difference so vast between those two things that it has cost an entire generation of men the only life they will ever get. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote one of the most famous books in human history, and he never once called it a book. He called it his failures. He called it his daily reminders. He called it the things he kept forgetting to do. This is not a video about burning your library. This is a video about finally understanding what books were always supposed to be and why most people are using them completely wrong. Welcome to Timeless Thinkers, where the wisdom of history meets the chaos of today. The greatest minds who ever lived did not become great by reading about greatness. They became great by doing something most people never do. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, the way you see every book on your shelf will be permanently changed. There is a drug that is completely legal. It is sold in every bookstore, every airport, every Amazon warehouse in the world. It gives you the feeling of progress without the pain of progress. It makes you feel smarter without making you act smarter. It lets you believe you are becoming someone better while you sit completely still and do absolutely nothing. The drug is called reading. And the world is full of addicts who have convinced themselves that consuming knowledge is the same as applying it. It is not. Let me give you a number that will stay with you. The average person reads 12 to 15 books per year. Studies show that 90% of what you read is forgotten within 1 week. Not some of it, 90% gone. And of the 10% you remember, most people apply almost none of it consistently in their real lives. So you spend hours reading, days absorbing, weeks highlighting, and what you are left with is a fraction of information that changes nothing because it never leaves the page. Seneca saw this happening in Rome 2,000 years ago. He wrote to his friend Lucilius and said something that most people in the self-help space refuse to say out loud. He said, "Distract not thyself by reading many books. Read the few that matter and live them completely." Read the few that matter and live them completely. Not collect them, not display them, not quote them at dinner. Live them. Seneca was watching men in Rome do exactly what men on YouTube are doing today, consuming wisdom as entertainment, using knowledge as a substitute for courage, reading about the life they wanted instead of building it. Here is the paradox at the center of this entire conversation. Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations, one of the most read books in human history. Billions of people have picked it up, searching for the secret of how he became who he was. But almost nobody notices the most important thing about that book. He wrote the same lessons over and over again, page after page, the same ideas about discipline, about presence, about controlling his mind, about doing his duty, repeated dozens of times across 12 books. Why would the most powerful and educated man in the Roman Empire keep writing the same lessons to himself? Because he kept forgetting to live them. He was not writing Meditations for you. He was writing it because reading it once was not enough. Living it once was not enough. He needed to write it every single morning to remind himself to actually do it that day. That is the secret most people miss entirely when they pick up that book. Marcus Aurelius is not showing you what wisdom looks like when it is mastered. He is showing you what wisdom looks like when it is practiced, daily, imperfectly, repeatedly. He is not a finished product sitting on a pedestal. He is a man wrestling with himself every single morning before the world woke up. And here is the question that should stop you cold. You have read Meditations, maybe twice, but have you done what Marcus Aurelius actually did? Have you sat down every single morning and written what you are struggling with that day? Have you identified the specific thing you keep failing at and committed to doing it differently today? Or did you just read it, feel inspired for 3 days, and then put it on the shelf next to 14 other books that gave you the same 3-day feeling? That's the difference between Marcus Aurelius and almost everyone who reads his work. He did not just read wisdom, he practiced it like a warrior practices his sword, every single day. I want to be precise about something. This video is not saying books are bad. Books are extraordinary. The problem is not the book. The problem is what most people do with books. And I can describe the problem in one sentence. Most people read to feel ready. Think about that. Most people read to feel ready. They believe that somewhere in the next book, the next chapter, the next podcast episode, there is a piece of information that will finally make them feel prepared enough to begin, confident enough to start the business, ready enough to have the conversation, certain enough to make the change. And so they keep reading, and the feeling of readiness never comes, because readiness does not come from information. Readiness comes from action. Epictetus never had a library. He was a slave. He had no books, no scrolls, no access to the great libraries of Rome. What he had was a mind that observed everything around him and extracted lessons from living. He learned philosophy not by reading about suffering, but by suffering himself. He learned about freedom not by reading about freedom, but by being denied it and choosing it anyway inside his own mind. And when he was finally freed and began teaching, his students recorded his lectures and called them the discourses. He never wrote a single word of it himself, because Epictetus understood something that most modern readers have completely forgotten. Wisdom is not something you consume. Wisdom is something you become through doing, through failing, through getting back up, through trying again differently, not through finding the perfect highlight in chapter 7. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. There is a specific type of person that reading culture has created. You have met them. They can quote Marcus Aurelius at dinner. They can explain the dichotomy of control better than most professors. They have read all of Ryan Holiday's books twice. They have a Stoic quote as their phone wallpaper. And if you look at their actual life, their relationships, their finances, their health, their output, there is almost nothing there. Because they confused knowing about Stoicism with being Stoic, knowing about discipline with being disciplined, knowing about courage with being courageous. The ancient Greeks called this the difference between episteme and phronesis. Episteme is theoretical knowledge, knowing about something. Phronesis is practical wisdom, knowing how to live it. And the brutal truth is that you can fill your entire head with episteme and never develop a single drop of phronesis, because phronesis only comes from one place, the arena, not the library. Marcus Aurelius did not develop his unbreakable mind by reading about unbreakable minds. He developed it by governing an empire through plague and war and betrayal and grief. The books he read prepared him for the arena. They did not replace it. And that's the distinction most people are missing completely. Read to prepare, then enter the arena. Because the man who reads about courage and never acts is not brave, he's just well-informed about bravery. And being well-informed about something you never do is perhaps the most sophisticated form of self-deception ever invented. So what is the answer? Not burning your books, not rejecting knowledge. The answer is reading like a Stoic. And reading like a Stoic means following 4 rules that Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus all practiced, and none of them ever needed to write a book to teach. Rule 1. Read one book at a time and finish it completely before touching another. Not 3 books at once, not a different book every week. 1. Give it your full attention. Let it settle. Rule 2. After every chapter, ask yourself one question and one question only. What am I going to do differently today because of what I just read? Not what did I learn, not what was interesting. What am I going to do today? Not eventually, today. Rule 3. Close the book before it's finished. When you read something that genuinely applies to your life right now, close the book and go apply it. The book will be there when you get back. Your life will not wait. Rule 4. Judge your reading by what changes in your life, not by how many books you finish. If you read one book this year and it changed how you work, how you treat people, and how you face fear, that is